Okay, and I've made numerous references to creating a quiet period access list throughout this video lesson. So now we're finally here. We're going to find out how to create a quiet period access list, and more importantly, why you want to create a quiet period access list. So this next bit that's in italics, this is directly from the Cisco documentation for this command. It says use a login quiet mode access class command to selectively allow hosts on the basis of a specified access list. And what it doesn't tell you is this is basically the access list that you're going to use in lieu of the default access list that Cisco generates that we saw earlier, that SL underbar DEF underbar ACL access list. Now this next bit, this is classic Cisco right here, and the reason I'm going to read this and take a look at this real quick is because I can very easily see this ending up being material for a Cisco certification exam question. You may use this command to grant an active client or list of clients an infinite number of failed attempts that are not countered by the router. So you could see a question that says, hey, what configuration line would you use, or what feature would you use to grant an active client or list of clients an infinite number of failed attempts that are not countered by the router? And you'd sit there scratching your head going, what the hell are they talking about here? Verbiage. It's a little bit confusing there, but to their credit, Cisco does go on to kind of clear this up really nicely in the next part of this sentence. It says, that is, the active clients are placed in a safe list that allows them access to the router despite a quiet period. And I think that safe list is that's the simplest and best way to describe what a quiet period ACL is. You're specifying the devices that you want to have access to the router regardless if it's in the quiet period or not. So we do not want these specified devices to be blocked from accessing the router at any time. And we do that by first creating an access list. And you can use a numbered, named, standard, or extended access list. When I'm doing stuff like this and I have the option of using extended named access list, that's what I do. And I know I've mentioned this a number of times before. I like to put descriptive names on my access lists and to use all uppercase characters, because generally anything that's generated by the router or as a default is going to be all lowercase, and Cisco iOS is case sensitive, so that's an easy way to show something that you've configured that isn't a default or something that iOS has created. The one downside of that is that since iOS is case sensitive, you have to make sure that if you spell it with all caps here, you use the same convention when you're actually applying this. So in this case, we've created an access list that just says, allow anything from the 10.1.12.0/24 subnet to access anything. In this case, our VTY and auxiliary lines with either Telnet or SSH. We've decided not to allow HTTP in this case, and I did that just to show that, with the implicit deny statement at the end of an access list, by leaving something out, you're not permitting it, you're actually denying it. Then we just have to reference this access list in our login quiet mode access class command. Here, I would do this as a best practice, and I hope this doesn't get confusing, but I just listed it here because unless you want to, words tumbling out of mouth incoherently. Okay, let's regroup and try this. Best practice is to have an access class specified inbound on your auxiliary and your VTY lines, so that you don't just allow anybody to access that has reachability to an IP address on your box. So in this case, what this would do is it would say, this is what we want at all times. We only want to allow Telnet and SSH access to our auxiliary and VTY lines. And during the quiet mode, remember that little problem that we discussed earlier, where during the quiet mode, iOS will actually overwrite your access class with the default SL underbar def underbar ACL access list, which blocks everything. In this case, it's going to use the access list that you specified, which is the same one that you're using anyway. So there would be no difference in this case between quiet mode and normal mode as to what devices can access your router. I hope that wasn't needlessly complicated. What it's meant to do is just to show that at a bare minimum, if you have an access class specified, you want to specify at least the same access class for the quiet period. And you can make this more restrictive to say during the quiet period I only want a specific host 10.1.12.1 to access via SSH, and that's it. In that case, during normal operations you'd have a little bit more permissive but not open to any, and then during the quiet period you'd have it locked down to a single host with a single protocol. Again, hopefully that didn't get too confusing. Alright, and this is going to show you the output for your verification commands during normal mode with the quiet period access list configured in. Not a lot here, but what stands out is just that, it's going to show you with the show login command that you have a quiet mode access list with this name, and it's not really applied. I wish Cisco would be consistent with their language. It's configured. Because we're currently in normal mode, it's not applied. It gets applied when we're in quiet mode, and we can see that down here. And again, I hope this wasn't confusing. The example I gave in the last slide I'm not using in the next few slides. Here we just, basic. We're not filtering whatsoever. So you can see it's not applied to our auxiliary or VTY lines right now. Now, once the router has perceived a possible attack and goes into quiet mode, that's when the magic starts. So again, we've got our quiet mode access list, and I edited this bit out. There was nothing different there. I just did that so that I could fit this onto one slide and make it relatively legible. And we see the router is currently in a quiet mode. Another 48 seconds. In this case, I think we set the period for 1 minute. Here we go. Restricted logins filter by applied access list and the name of the access list that we created. And we can see our show login failures, and we've got 3 jackasses that tried to access the router, and that put us into quiet mode. And, hey, come on, that's a little severe. That's uncalled for. But the point I want to show here is that during this quiet period, it's going to overwrite. If you had an access list there that wasn't the same, but in our case we didn't have any access list or access class applied. So it goes ahead and takes that access list that you wrote, and it says let's go ahead and apply that inbound. So currently we're allowing devices on the 10.1.12.0/24 subnet to access this router through the auxiliary port or the VTY lines with telnet or SSH as per our access list aux _VTY access. So the big thing is we've applied that quote-unquote safe list, and we're not locking everybody out as we were before when we had not specified a quiet period access list.